Oh, here we go. I'm still getting used to this new program. All right, good morning. Hope you have a cuppa on this fine Sunday morning for me. It's Sunday morning. I don't know where it is for you. Today I want to talk about overwhelm, and that was because I watched a video by Kelly Hogan. I think she's called My Zero Carb Life. So if you're into carnivore, that kind of things, check her out. She is amazing. But she did a video, her recent one, on choose your hard. Okay, so here's an example from a lipedema perspective. Choose your hard. Progressing is devastating. So a progression in your lipedema and all the things that come with that, that's hard. That's devastating. That is hard. Diet and surgeries and doing all the things that you need to do to stop that progression, that's hard. So choose your hard. And it occurred to me listening to her talk about her journey with carnivore and what it fixed for her. She doesn't have lipedema. This was just, somebody I watched in the carnivore world. And it occurred to me that, yes, you've got to choose your hard, but it's because it all comes down to emotions. And we tend to avoid the emotions at all costs, right? We tend to try and mentally fix things, physically fix things, but we kind of ignore the emotional aspects of any issue we've got going on. And so I thought, we need, and it's not as popular, these sorts of videos and topics, because we don't want to do it. We don't want to face the emotions behind the things that scare us, that hinder us, that make us feel less than everybody else. So, but we've got to do it. If we don't address the emotions, it's like that three-legged stool, right? We see it everywhere: mind, body, soul. Some people say mind, body, heart, mind, body, emotions. Same thing. If we only have two that we're concentrating on, that third one, that stool's going to fall over, because that's what we hide from the world. And they've already shown lots of studies around the fact that emotions impact our diseases, that diseases are trapped emotions. So the overwhelm in the lipedema space is huge. I'm in a few groups, lipedema groups, and I read the comments all the time. And a lot of the things that we do just stems from the overwhelm of it all, because even though there's a lot of us, 11% of women is huge. It's a huge number. I have a feeling that's the same number of diabetes in the world, yet everybody's talking about diabetes. Nobody's talking about lipedema, yet it's something that you're born with, is the thought process around this, and you're overwhelmed right from the get-go, right? Feeling different at school, dieting from a really young age, kids at school making comments of your legs, that kind of thing. It's overwhelming, and we hide it. We hide it really well. We think we do. So, and it plays out, with our shopping, with our clothes choices, feeling terrible about ourselves because the diet didn't work yet again. And it's like, what's wrong with me, right? This is just such a normal progression of this disease. It's making me emotional just thinking about it, because I've gone through a life of this where I thought there was something really wrong with me. And I'm betting you did too, right? Okay, have a cuppa. But here's the thing. We try to fix ourselves mentally. We try to fix ourselves physically, but we just avoid that emotion all the time, because who wants to do this? Who wants to cry on screen, right? So we tuck it all down and we try and get past it all, but we don't. We never do, right? So what do? So I learned a couple of years ago, probably more than a few years ago, that if I didn't start working on myself, if I didn't start working on self-love and self-acceptance, that nothing would change. Nothing changes. So for me, and for everybody working on that side of yourself, is going to be different. You're going to gravitate to different modalities, to different people, to different ways of learning self-love and self-acceptance. And I think they both go hand in hand, but some people like to hear self-acceptance, some people like to hear self-love. For me, it's kinesiology and human design. All right, so I'm learning the things about myself through human design that, I'm meant to be this way, right? Because when we don't love ourselves because of our legs or because of our lumpy bits, then it has a knock-on effect of not loving ourselves because we said something stupid, or I don't know, we're not good enough at something, or it has a knock-on effect, right? So it just envelopes your whole world. So this is a really important thing to integrate into your life. So when I started learning kinesiology a few years ago, I did it because in my other platform, Thyroid School, I could see it just throughout. Nobody could get things done or achieve things because they weren't working on that side of themselves. And I've used this analogy many times where I might say to you, you need to give up gluten because gluten causes your antibodies to attack your thyroid, right? But if your favorite memory is of sitting at the kitchen table with your nana who's passed away, eating tomato sandwiches on white bread, you are never going to give up that white bread, that gluten, which is going to affect you physically. It's going to be a block in your amygdala, in your ancient brain, that you don't even understand why you can't give up that bread. You just think you're a bad person and you've got no willpower and all these sorts of things. But it's not. It's like a memory. It's an emotion you're hanging on to. So that is why I started incorporating kinesiology into my work, because I can tell you to not eat gluten till I'm blue in the face. I can tell you with lipedema to try carnivore till I'm blue in the face. But if you've got memories and emotions attached to other foods, you are not going to give them up, right? So that's just a really prime example of the three-legged stool. You can think about it till you're blue. You can physically, have all the meat and boil the eggs and have the prep work in your freezer, in your fridge. But you will find a way or go out for takeaway or do something else to satisfy those emotions if you haven't dealt with them, right? And I had this very interesting conversation at work the other day with the chiropractor I work with, and we were talking about how trauma is passed down in DNA. And it's true. It's like they've done studies upon studies. It's passed down up to 7 generations. So you might have traumas and emotions that don't even belong to you, but you don't address them. And that just compounds on top of the trauma and the emotions of something like lipedema that you have no control over, right? We can't diet it away. We can't exercise it away. So, every diet you feel like a failure. What's wrong with me? No doctor. I've spoken to a lipedema lady just recently who wrote down everything she ate, took it into the doctor. And I've had this experience. And the doctor's like, that's not what you eat. There's no way that's what you eat, right? So I'm sure you can understand that if you've lived with this, that those times of like people not believing you, right? Exercising does nothing, okay? All it did for me for a long time was, you do need exercise. I'm not saying don't exercise if you've got this. You do. You need to move your lymphatics. They're like butter. If you sit around, they get hard. If you're moving, they're flowing like melted butter. So you do need to move, but don't move because you're wanting to lose weight, because that movement's not going to lose weight for you, right? That movement is to keep your lymphatics healthy and to stop the progression. So mentally, you've got to get your head around that. And emotionally, you've got to accept that that's where you're at right now. Okay, so with emotions, the other thing I look up, and I always look up, is what our issues mean metaphysically. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Louise Hay. This is a book I've had for years and years. And it's so old that lipedema, of course, is not in it as an issue, but lymph problems is. And it says what lymph problems mean is a warning that the mind needs to be recentered on the essentials of life, love, and joy. And I've read in other books and platforms that lipedema is a lack of joy, right? So, and presumably because we've spent all our life in overwhelm trying to figure this out, right? So there's no joy. Fair enough. All right, so what can we do to reduce the overwhelm? And I'm really surprised that this has made me so emotional. So really surprised. And that tells me how emotional you are about this when you think about it. All right. Okay, so mentally, the first thing that we've got to do mentally is decide, can I afford surgery? All right. So if you can't afford a surgery, it's about stopping the progression and doing what you can to live a healthy, functioning life, right? If you can afford surgery, most people can't, then great, that's a whole road to go down, right? So physically, so we've done mentally, decide either way. Because I've come across a lot of people that can't afford the surgery but still desperate to get a diagnosis, and I talked about this a couple of Cuppas ago. There is no point in getting a diagnosis if you cannot afford surgery. All right, there is no point. The only reason you would need a formal diagnosis is if you can afford to do that. Otherwise, it's just one more thing on your health rap sheet. And I know for my friends in America that you want as little as possible on your insurance rap sheet. All right, so don't add it if you don't think you can ever afford to do this. Okay, so mentally make that decision. What can you do? Can you do this? Can you do that? That's all you have to decide to begin with. Physically, the other leg of the stool, stop the progression. Stop the progression no matter what. So lose the weight that is not lipedema, right? So I discovered after having weight loss surgery, which altered my hormones, which finally allowed me to lose weight. If you haven't heard that story, it is on my, it's on this YouTube channel somewhere, is the full story of how I actually found the information and went ahead with this. So I had a lot of weight that was not lipedema, because what happens with lipedema is there's an issue with your hormones, okay? And I already had an issue with my hormones being thyroid disease. The thyroid probably was what brought about the explosion of lipedema fat, okay? So physically, all you can do is lose the weight that is not lipedema related. VSG, gastric sleeve surgery, is what worked for me. Some people have found that carnivore, ketovore works for them, and keto at the very least. That seems to be where the research is at the moment, is being in a very low carb dietary situation. So grains seem to be toxic to the lymphatics. And remember, this is all about lymphatic health. Lipedema is a situation like leaky lymphatics. So physically, to stop the progression, we're going to lose as much weight as we can that is not lipedema related. Take care of the lymphatics. So skin brushing, movement, rebounder, incliner, lymphatic drainage massage, anything that you can do, anything that you can afford. Be careful with the rebounder. Hypermobile joints can cause issues, all right? So, and finally, investing in compressions, pumps, grounding mats, vibration plates. There's a million different things out there that you can try that are less of a burden financially and is worth a shot, right? So, mentally, physically, now let's do it emotionally. What can you do? You have to find a way to love yourself. We've discussed this, all right? No matter what your size, no matter what the outcome, no matter what you think the outcome's going to be long-term in your life. If you don't love yourself and accept yourself through this, then that's when life gets really miserable. Okay, so I have on my private Facebook page, my header says, nobody is coming to save you. Get up, right? Because you're the only one that knows what it feels like to be in your shoes. Nobody else does. So therefore, nobody else is going to work as hard as you are to improve your life. If you don't find the modalities that you need to help love yourself, to help accept yourself, then you're going to have a miserable life. Okay, so there's so many out there, you know, whether it's meditation, whether it's working with a counselor, whether it's working with a healer, kinesiology like I do, the Ho'oponopono prayer. I've talked about that many times. If you haven't heard that, let me know. I'm not sure I've done a video on that actually. Right, it's an ancient Hawaiian prayer. It's actually more of a practice, and it's something I've used many times over the years. But I've found over time that the most effective thing for me emotionally was kinesiology. And the most effective thing for me personally for understanding self-acceptance and that I am who I am is through human design. If you haven't heard of human design, I don't talk about that a lot on here, but that is like the blueprint of who you are. Okay, I've never come across anything where people say, whenever I share bits of their human design, they'll say, I feel so seen, right? And you need to feel seen. You need to feel like, oh, that's not a wrong thing about me. That's just who I am. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to share with the world, right? So self-acceptance, self-love, doesn't matter how you go about it. That's your priority. That's probably the leg of the stool that needs to be the strongest to get you through the other stuff in any way that you're going to try and help yourself through this health journey. Which is, you know, it's a tough journey. It's not the toughest journey. There are people out there with worse things, but other people's worst things and your worst thing feels the same, right? Because you don't understand that thing. They don't understand your thing. Nobody is as interested in your health as you are. My husband said that to me many years ago, which is what made me study. And you need to remember that nobody else will know the real you. This is what I learned from human design. When you are by yourself, I'm by myself in this room, I'm the real me. The minute somebody else comes into the room, into your vicinity, that real person and your real person combines and actually forms another energy. I know this is woo-woo, bear with me. But that reason, because of that, because when two people come together and form a different kind of an energy, a different human design blueprint, that's why this person will never know what this person's real self is. Nobody will ever know you. We always go, oh, I wish somebody really knew how I feel. Nobody will ever know, because the minute two people come together, you form a third thing, right? So it's really fascinating. And once you understand that, then you have more self-love, then you have more self-acceptance. Yeah, that's all I can say about that. And if you want me to talk more about human design at some point, let me know. It's not for everybody, and that's okay, right? That's the self-acceptance and self-love I'm learning about myself, the things that I love, the things that light me up and help me get through life. They're personal to me, just as yours will be personal to you, right? So start with addressing the overwhelm. Start with addressing the emotions, because I've got no doubt if you're in the lipedema world, if you're in the thyroid world, if you're in the overweight world in any way, shape or form, you've addressed the mental and the physical 1,000,000 times over. You've probably nailed that and you know all the things. What's stopping you is the emotional leg of that stool, all right? So I'm going to leave you with that today, and let me know how you feel about this, right? How you feel is the operative word. That's what's important in this world, and we tend to ignore it, and we should not. Okay. All right. Have a happy Sunday, and I hope you're well wherever you are. Bye.